Welcome to another edition of the CivBattleRoyale. My name is Dawkinzz, and this is episode 34, the Great Pacific Showdown, and the other things. War rages in the Pacific. Oh, and all those other wars, too. What a world. Starting on turn 625, let's get right into this. Welcome, my friends, to the one and only Civilization Battle Royale X. Part 34 to be exact. I am your grateful, very grateful host, user Monkey Chumbles, or Bennis on the Discord, and I am delighted to narrate a part full of excitement, heartbreak, and even more shitpost material. I have been following the CBR for more than 3 years now, and I have finally been graced with the chance to narrate, and the wait was well worth it. Sit back, grab a drink and some snacks, and enjoy the show. The Prussian Monitor always keeps me up to date with the happenings around Prussia and its near neighbors. I absolutely love hearing the Prussians' view of all of the events of the cylinder, and I can't wait to hear about this part. With about 6 months under our belt, it's pretty humorous to see where we all went wrong in our predictions. I, for one, am absolutely flawless in my predictions and predicted Shikoku's rise to power way back when they hadn't made a single settler. But for real, what a good post idea, user Headlock. Varia again graces us with an insanely speedy map. It always helps me digest what the hell just happened after every single part. Thanks, Varia. The Iroquois managed to hold on to the number 1 spot for the second week in a row. Will Uruguay be able to take back their rightful spot? We begin our journey with a shot of the static Prussian Goth front, but trust me, we won't be seeing many more static fronts the rest of the part. St. John's is firmly in the Iroquois' grasp, but the rest of the water and land seems to be stuck in a logjam of peacekeeping units. Ice clings to the hulls of Zimbabwean transport ships, and their crews begin to wonder what peace they're trying to protect. 4 Aussie supercarriers sit just off the coast of Tasmania, holding 12 aircraft. The entire island is flanked on all sides by Australian units, giving little hope of escape for the trapped Kiwis. Queanbeyan is in the black, with an Australian SASR at full health, ready to claim victory for their empire. No Métis units in sight. Queenstown, with an impressive 46 population, is pictured being stealthily bombed by Hawk's wide-reaching military. I'm not sure why that bomber would at all be considered a stealth bomber, as it looks big enough to block out the sun for a majority of the city. It's like something out of Chrono Trigger. Bob Hawke assumes control of the entire Australian continent, finally kicking Sudan out of Tasmania. Hawke's siege army is now heading east to the home islands of New Zealand. Christchurch and Invercargill are swallowed up, and sorry Sudan, submarines are not an effective strategy in taking back your lost territory. A Canton ship uses their telescopes to watch the brutal takeover of Christchurch. They report back to Qingxi that under no circumstances should their citizens be left to Australian rule. She then immediately sends a holographic telegram to the Qin to come and put them out of their misery. The same carrier with those 4 planes, I am now officially deeming this carrier the HMAS Unsinkable II, is sitting in the water just outside of their new conquest, Auckland. For the first time in CBRX history, another civilization has made landfall on the islands of New Zealand, and both Dargaville and Wellington are dangerously close to falling. A quick break from the Pacific carnage. Stuck between mountain range and a freezing ocean, Ribe looks to return to its rightful Viking owners. The Viking semi-war seems to be one of the only wars devoid of peacekeeping units, besides the Pacific, of course. Looks like the stealth bombing didn't work as Queenstown begins to recover. Further south, Hawera falls to the green tide. We also see the HMAS Unsinkable II eyeing up the competition. The Australians continue to take bites out of Sudan's empire, and now more than half of the South Island is under their control. The Kiwis are not putting up as much resistance as I thought they would. This is karma for the Sulknum. Frankfurt an der Oder is now surrounded as the Goths take Danzig. Contrary to the south, the northern front seems to be much more elastic. A Prussian general responds, Nusse, I think, to a Gothic surrender request. Sedan's army has either fled, defected, or been completely obliterated because I can't find it anywhere. Gisborne and Queenstown are both taken by Hawke. The New Zealand capital falls with, again, very little resistance. I see very few troops that stand a chance of taking back any of these losses. There are a strange amount of Kiwi settlers in these slides. Maybe they're going to settle a completely new civilization after this one has fallen. Maybe it explains where those millions of people from Auckland and Wellington went. The Australians can't be that bloodthirsty, can they? A healthy mix of Prussian and Madagascan troops block any troop movement in this area of Europe, which prevents any easy recapture of Danzig. One of the last bastions of hope for Tonga, Nuku'alofa, is under little threat from Nazca as it stands currently, but if Kawachi can get that tank across the ocean somehow, it could fall. The Queenstown Island chain returns to its peaceful existence and the tide of war shifts away. Sedan's personal missile cruiser waits for the last refugees of Wellington to board. Sedan's decision to send troops to take back Wellington was viewed as idiotic, pitiful, and purely a publicity stunt by most of his generals, but the decision was made as a last-ditch effort to save his citizens. Hawke continues to systematically dismantle New Zealand, taking back their capital Wellington, as well as Porirua. It seems as if Hawke doesn't care enough to take New Zealand's northern holdings. If nothing drastic happens, I'd wager on Sedan's empire being exiled to the northern Pacific and Marianas Islands. It's a last desperate attempt to hold Dargaville long enough to escort its citizens out before the Australians roll in. The Unsinkable 2 sits in Greymouth Harbor for repairs. Its crew are rewarded by Bob Hawke himself for their amazing performance on the high seas and a most beautiful ceremony on the docks of Greymouth. Its captain, Nolan Kelly, is rewarded with a week-long vacation to Tasmania. Up north, the fighting ends between the Sami and Vikings. Ribe ends in Viking hands, and all is well. Well, besides the thousands to millions of lives lost in a war of no gains for either side. Prussia and Sami also make peace with the Goths. Havaloto is still recovering from its recent conquest. The Nazca have studied Shikoku and fully outfitted their own navy with submarines. Very little fighting has been pictured between Australia and New Zealand in the past couple of shots, but we can only assume that the Kiwi submarines must be wreaking havoc on Australian merchant ships. Off-screen, Sedan recaptures Wanganui. Sedan's generals eat their words as the North Island is almost completely back under their control. I was not expecting this. Finally, some resistance. That paratrooper looks in place to flip back Auckland, but for how long? Our favorite invisible Civ is in serious danger of falling for good. Their last city is teetering on the edge, but not many units in sight can tip that scale. The Great Pacific War shifts northward, but with resistance in the south around Wellington. Hawke is in danger of spreading himself too thin. Be careful, Bob. Somehow, some Nazcan submarines made it all the way through the mess of units and borders to Mua, and the city picks them off one by one. Palmerston North is completely cut off from the chaos of the Great Pacific War. What a peaceful existence. Masterton and Elavela have already been bombed into the black before any large amount of Australian ships or ground units reach them. Those are some big cities. Zimbabwe declares war on New Zealand. If Matota ships some troops across the Indian Ocean, they could do some damage and begin their intercontinental empire. But don't forget about South America, because Zimbabwe was cruising around there some time ago. Hawk's military seems to have a very healthy mix of air and naval power. Boera and Masterton are set up to fall as soon as they get a melee unit in there. Last time we saw Mua, it had 2 submarines off its coast, and now it's taken by the Nazca. That giant death robot couldn't have anything to do with it. Tonga is running on borrowed time. A very noticeable lack of Iroquois units in Greenland. Looks like they ran out of steam after taking St. John's. After word reached them about the declaration of war on Sudan, the Zimbabwean peacekeepers are really starting to question their mission up here. We can see the result of the Nazca and Tonga peace deal in action here, and Tonga is alive. I honestly can't tell how many cities they have left, but it can't be more than 3. Wellington is back in the hands of the Aussies, and Hastings joins them. I'd like to think that bomber is Sudan's, carrying citizens of Hastings to their safety back up north. 2 Australian great generals take a break from the bloodshed just outside Porura. Mua recovers from the Nazca-Tonga War. The Nanets are surprisingly still here, and giving me flashbacks of Yakusha from Mark II. I'm told the Chin have declared war on the Nanets this turn as well, which is, to say the least, not good for any Nanet supporters out there. Every single city on this screen is in the black, but not a single unit is in range to take anything. This is the definition of a standstill. The Selknam. Out of all people Sudan could have declared war on right now, I guess he chose the best one. Besides, obviously, no one. The Nazca do stand to further their reach around South America. Not even one turn in and the Selknam are already toppling. Sadly, for Sudan, it seems like he really wasn't in any position to declare war. Even though his cities are not taking any substantial damage, any damage he does is in vain, and all his potential conquests seem to be more likely going to the Nazca. Tongu hosts the World Congress this year and proposes repeal on the ban of ivory. We have too many elephants, Bang Nong shouts over the arguing leaders, but to no avail. Hiawatha thinks the world is too happy and proposes a ban on dyes of all colors. Gross. Mehmed seems to be attracting a lot of attention, with both Benin and the Manx declaring war in the past 2 slides. Bursa, though, has been untouched by any wars that may have or still happening with certain purple civilizations. An amazing 40 population in Bursa. The Selknam still have a little punch left in them as they begin to strike at New Zealand's Antarctic holdings. That Uruguayan mechanized artillery might become a problem, though. Just south of Hastings, the Antarctic outpost of Taimaru hosts what is left of Sudan's navy in the frigid ocean. They could try and make a last-ditch effort to take back Hastings. Masterton falls to the Green Army, and every other city on the slide is in the black and in danger of falling as well. Mixed in with these high-tech navies, Haida privateers watch on. Hamank becomes Nazca, and New Zealand still has absolutely no units in the area. Kauai will no doubt be the next target for Kawachi. We are no doubt watching the fall of the Selknam here. One of the only cities untouched by this war is Yoax, which is pretty well defended from the Nazca and Kiwi forces. A large Venetian force sits off the coast. Oh my! It seems our little invisible friends have finally bit the bullet to the chin. I think this may constitute the longest capital snipe yet. The Nanets definitely had a game. What it was, I'm not really sure. I really would not be the person to write a eulogy for these guys. I pretty much ignored them as much as 90% of the cylinder did. It was pretty amazing when they began to settle, but truly they never amounted to much more than a smaller, slightly more fun Yakusha, although not as good at rapping. Rest well, knowing you provided us with some subpar entertainment. You will be missed. F. Sudan grabs Kauai right from Kawachi's grasp, and Khorasan falls into the red. The Nazca have open borders with New Zealand, so there is still a good chance Kawachi can make a few more gains. Poera and Wangamatta both flip green with little resistance. The Great Pacific War rages on, and Tongu watches silently, like a creep. The only thing keeping Kasen black and white is the Uruguayan mech artillery, but the city is still surrounded. If that mech dare move out of the city, if it gets the chance, Kasen is surely doomed. And also, is it black and white? It's more off-white than anything. More like a beige. The great general in Taimaru plots his revenge on the Aussie menace and the retaking of Hastings. He receives a message from Sedan far up north. His time will come to show what he's made of soon. He is our only hope to retake the home isles. Sedan has had very little success in retaking any of his lost land with his smattering of boats and troops all across the ocean. Elavela is still at 24 population after flipping to Australia, so I can only imagine how many people died while stuck on that island. Time is running thin for our Selknam friends. Coruscant falls to the Nazca, and Kauais looks like it can hold on for maybe another turn or two. It's a race to see who will get the statue of Zeus/Cthulhu. Auckland and Wellington, two of the most populous cities on the cylinder, have been reduced to 4 and 7 population respectively. I wonder what they do with all that extra housing space. Australia looks to have a relatively strong hold on New Zealand's homeland, with no comeback in sight for Sedan. The Unsinkable 2 is back on patrol with a refreshed crew and captain, itching for a fight. The front down here is relatively the same, except for the fact that Yawux has been bombed into the red. Joan Huante seems to have very little chance to take back any of the lost cities with that small military. But he's got spunk and moxie. Ohonua was traded to Nazca from Tonga in their peace deal, and what a city it is. A 36 population city is an amazing gain for Nazca if their happiness can handle it. Selknam retakes Kauais from Sedan, but Nazca takes it right back and kicks them off the continent again. Just to add insult to the very bad injury, Madagascar and the Moors declare war on New Zealand. The Moors do have the chance to send some boats down to Sedan's South American holdings. The Kamugs switch governments mid-war from order to autocracy. The Chin are still having a hard time making any headway with ground units into Jamaica's land, even allowing Jorud to heal, even if just slightly. Jamaica does have a sizable force around Naku, if only he could reach any of the completely destroyed Chin cities. Sedan orders the retaking of Minjaraba with what little forces he has left, and it does look like it will be enough with how much Hawk has spread out his army. The Kiwi army just barely holds on to Otorahanga. The Goths, Zimbabwe, and Iroquois pile on the Selknam. Joan Huante resides in the frozen metropolis of Korkomen, with a surprising navy surrounding it. Is that like the sister city of Kikomen? The Kamug-Chin War is, again, still at a standstill. I thought you said there weren't going to be any more standstills. This area of the map is absolutely full of peacekeepers, really putting a hamper on the action. I can count 11 separate Civs units in just this screenshot. Someone up here just got hit with a bomb, but I'm not really sure from who or for whom the bomb was meant for. The frozen wastes haven't seen much action since the disappearance of the Nanettes, so I bet the excitement is welcomed. Kasen holds on by the skin of that Uruguayan mech artillery, completely surrounded by the Selknam Navy. Sedan himself sends his regards to Lavalleja. A lot of cities are switching down here as the Selknam continue to try and take back their lands. Huante retakes Coruscant from the Nazca, but it's swiftly snatched up by Sedan. India and Beta Israel declare war on Prussia, perhaps signaling a bigger coalition brewing. Off-screen, I'm told Maratha pieces out with Beta Israel. The front is still stable up in northern Asia. A large amount of Manx units block all movement. The Great Pacific War comes to a close with New Zealand quarantined to the North Pacific on a few island chains. Australia is sure to rise a significant number in the power rankings. La Valleja declares war on the Manx. One of the last strongholds of the Selknam, Yawux, has finally started to feel the heat of war. Both New Zealand and the Nazca are going to have to put a little more effort into this war if they want to take this city. The Manx and Prussia declare their hatred for Dandolo, with both sides trading hits close to their core territory. Except for the Manx, of course, who have almost no way of getting into mainland Europe, or have any chance of being threatened by Venice. Hopefully, we'll actually see some city trading unlike some other wars. Comugs. The Vikings have almost been completely expelled from Denmark, save for the one city tile. Prussia's citadeling has no doubt changed the map of Europe for the weirder. We can also see the Vikings' impressive naval carpet in this slide. The Comugs still yin from the chin, one of the first front-line changes we've seen in this area of the world this part. The battlefield appears to be thinning a bit in some places, hopefully making room for more chin or Comug units. Prague has sustained no damage so far, but Stettin has seen some fire from the Venetian Air Force. This section of the continent has a good amount of peacekeepers, which should slow this war down a bit. Yay! The Gobi Desert seems devoid of units at the moment, but the Comugs and Chin continue to battle it out up here. Yongcheng is down in the black and wide open for Comug attack. If only they would bring in some units. The Manx units are the only thing standing in the way of gray-colored Mukden. India tries to replicate the Manx wall around Kudu. Brno is on the forefront of the Venice-Prussia war, already almost down to the black. A Venetian great prophet attempts to bring the walls down with prayer. Olivolo is hurt but not in any current danger, while Prague has still not taken any damage. New Zealand pieces out with the Selknam, leaving their fate up to Kawachi. We can see one of the last unclaimed tiles on the cylinder out here on the Galapagos Islands. Both Nazca and Venezuela have a similar-sized military in the area, but with not much here to gain at the moment, any battles would be for naught. The Chin snatch up Togta as the front begins to destabilize. There is an abnormally low amount of peacekeepers in Asia at the moment, and both sides of this war should take the chance to make as many gains as possible before it clogs up again. The Comugs bombard Ardarkin and its surrounding units, hoping to take back the city. Chin does not have much of a force in the area, so Jamuka should have some luck here. Let's hope this lack of peacekeepers is a trend in the area for the future. The Chin hold on to Yin, but Jamuka's generals sweep around the top to capture Mukden. A lack of units in the area could hold things up, and those damn Gothic units aren't helping. Venice is bombed into the red, and Alavolo continues to face heavy bombardment on the front lines. There is a lack of Venetian troops in their core, completely taken up by a smattering of civs. Prussia may have the advantage here if a spot can open up close to any of these cities. One good paratrop, and Venice could be in a big heap of trouble. Mukden flips back to Zhang, and Jarud has a few open tiles that some sneaky Chin units could slip into. The peacekeepers seem to act as a tide, rolling in some turns and heading back out to see others. It is surely high tide at the moment. Yewux teeters on the edge of disaster. While not the last Selknam city, it certainly would be a big loss to a civ that's already lost it all. Juan Uante flips through his monster manual, trying to find something big and scary to scare off the invaders. Flipping to the last page, he meets in the middle with the all-powerful gods and sighs, "Fine, the Tarrasque will do." I'm thinking that the Selknam will remain and linger on as a false Hydra. Pretty cool, but that's homebrew. Venice's core cities fall into the black, but they all hold on for a bit longer. Europe is absolutely filled to the brim with units, halting any movement in what should be an absolutely game-changing war. Liberec and Aachen start to take fire from Prussia, but all the Venetian units are at full health, showing no signs of battle near the cities. Vienna clings to Europe with its only land tiles coming from that citadel on Venice. Mukden flips back to the Qin, bringing the population down to 1. Zhang reinforces his claims with a sizable and very mobile army, pushing the front away from Beijing. The Goths are adamant on completely filling up just the front line and nothing in front or behind. In the bottom left, you can see Mukden has been recaptured by the Kalmuks. Both militaries are looking fairly even in this shot, and with the constant flip-flopping, I could assume both sides are evenly matched at this point in time. The Qin steal Margade, a city completely surrounded by Jamaica's borders. A couple of Australians take a nap on the deck of their lake boats as the anti-aircraft guns fire in the distance. Here on our last slide for this part, we can see the city of Ardakin completely surrounded by the Goths, which are then completely surrounded by the Kalmuks, a turducken of civs, if you will. I wish the citizens of Ardakin luck with that missile currently inbound on their city. And just kidding, that wasn't the last slide. A shot of Greenland in all its colorful glory. Strasbourg and Västerås are both being bombed, but I don't think I can see a single Iroquois unit in the Vikings' borders. Our recently deceased friends are now full of Qin units, and the Kazakhs are absolutely brimming with Métis units. Not a good sign for Ablai Khan, who doesn't have enough room for his own military. It's strange to see this border peaceful again, although the horrid border gore isn't any more sightly than war. Both sides have filled up their borders with troops relatively well. Lots and lots of city in the black or red up here in Manchuria, looking more like a Kalmuk-dominated area if only they could get their troops in. A line of Gothic troops stretches across the slide, blocking most movement for both the Qin and Kalmuks. Not a lot of action on the mountain front, lots of cities in the black, but no flipping. Poor Nepal. Lots and lots of damaged Prussian cities, but their army is able to hold the ground around them. Prussia looks to almost completely outmatch Venice on the ground, but with no room to get in. We finally get a shot of New Zealand's new capital, the 69, nice, population city of Palmerston North. And north it is, extremely far north from where the Kiwis really belong. Nazca's borders are looking a bit thin of units. Hopefully they'll fill that all in soon. Former Soknam lands split between the Nazca and New Zealand. Yewux looks just a bit safer than before. A view of Soknam's new capital city, Korkomen, shows us just how bad the damage is. Juan Huante's empire has been reduced to just 2 cities, with one under fire from the Nazca. It has been an absolute joy to finally narrate an episode for you, friends, a goal of mine for a very, very long time. This has been user Monkey Chumbles. I hope this was as enjoyable for you all as it was for me. Hope to narrate again soon. And with that ends another episode of the Civ Battle Royale. My name is Dawkinzz. As always, if you enjoyed this, like, subscribe, comment if I mispronounced basically everything, which I probably have. And correct me again, I'll try harder next time. But until then, we'll see you next time.